My name is Erick Burres. I'm the Citizen Monitoring Coordinator for the Water Board's Clean Water team. And this presentation will focus on water contact sanitary surveys. It's a topic that I've been interested in because a lot of citizen water quality monitoring groups are monitoring for fecal indicator bacteria. But they needed to be able to have other tools to put their data to use and a greater context within the watershed. In 2016, EPA hosted the Recreational Waters Conference. I was fortunate enough to be invited to give a presentation on citizen involvement to support recreational water quality health. If you weren't able to make it or have not seen any of the material from that conference, you can use the link below. That's about everything that was presented at the conferences there. And fortunately, they spoke and gave a lot of presentations regarding sanitary surveys and a new app, which got me really excited. I wanted to be able to bring this tool back to California and get it involved within the citizen science community, especially in the inland waters. And we were able to do that this year. In September, I hosted a series of workshops throughout the state focusing on contact activities being supported by sanitary surveys. This is the group up in Clear Lake that participated, and starting on the far left we have Ibrahim Goodwin from USEPA. Next to him is Samantha Fontanelle, and then the gentleman behind with the beard, that is John Wathan. They came out from EPA to assist me in the workshop. We had a great time, and the 3 different workshops focusing on EJ communities and tribes were really well received. They were held in Inland Empire. The Inland Empire Waterkeepers hosted that. Here in Los Angeles, hosted by Heal the Bay, and the Big Valley Rancheria Pomo Indians hosted us up on Clear Lake. In the office, when I mentioned I was going to be working on water contact sanitary surveys, didn't grab a lot of traction. Everybody in the office was very familiar, somewhat familiar with the drinking water sanitary surveys, not so much water contact surveys. So just want to let people know that there's a little similarity. You know, sanitary surveys are proactive public health measures, but the public water system sanitary survey is very rigorous, and here in California, a lot of effort and a lot of money is spent to ensure that our drinking waters are safe. There's 8 areas within the sanitary survey that are being focused on, those being source, treatment, distribution system, finished water storage, pumps, monitoring and reporting, management and operation, operator compliance. These surveys are done every 3 years for community water systems, and for non-community water systems every 5 years. So very different survey and on a different monitoring schedule as well. But similar is that we do these surveys to protect public health. The Marine Beach sanitary surveys and the Great Lakes sanitary surveys were developed by USEPA to help beach managers, specifically in coastal states, coastal beaches, and beaches in the Great Lakes, so that managers could identify and synthesize beach and watershed information. So it's collecting all of that information regarding water quality data, pollutant source data, land use, and other information so that we can improve water quality for swimming. Basically, the goal is give you some tools so you can go out there and do your job. We want to make sure that the public that is going out and doing something in our waters, they're safe. So the National Beach Guidance and Required Performance Criteria for Grants, is something that our coastal beach managers are probably familiar with. That's where they get some funds to do their beach monitoring. The guidance includes requirements for grants. Included within these requirements is a tiered monitoring approach, making sure that there's plans put together that are based on the level of beach use or risk and FIB threshold exceedances. So beaches that have lots of people, have pollution problems, they receive more attention, monitoring, so that we can understand what's going on at those locations and protect the public. The guidance also stresses a toolbox approach to beach management. That toolbox includes focus monitoring, predictive models, and sanitary surveys. For those of you that are active in managing water quality in California, you understand our system of beneficial uses of water. Our policy for water quality control is directed toward achieving the highest water quality consistent with maximum benefit to the people of the state. So throughout the state, we have water bodies that support some utilization of the waters in them. Not all of our water bodies have a list of beneficial uses that they're supporting, but if you look through our basin plans, you'll find a good list. But if it's not a water quality beneficial use attached, that doesn't mean that it's precluded. We still may see beneficial uses happening to that particular water body. Primarily, when you're talking about beaches and monitoring fecal indicator bacteria for protecting the public, we're looking at the beneficial uses of Rec 1, water contact recreation, and Rec 2, non-contact water recreation. These are the traditional things that were done here in the state of California, but we now have additional beneficial uses involving water contact. These are tribal, traditional, and cultural uses. We also have tribal subsistence fishing beneficial uses and subsistence fishing beneficial uses as well. So who would be interested in sanitary surveys? Well, it's beach managers, public health officials, stormwater managers, environmental justice organizations, tribes, watershed groups, researchers, the list goes on and on. What's done to protect the public health in water contact activities? Well, we monitor the water quality and we will conduct sanitary investigations to protect those involved in their water contact activities. We conduct these sanitary surveys annually and routinely. There's two different forms, two different approaches that are taken through the course of the year to collect information. We conduct our surveys at the sites where people are in water contact and in the contributing watershed. And of course, we do this to protect public health and to support economies. The big thing that we get from conducting sanitary surveys is getting a handle on the unknown. If we're monitoring our beaches and we have a pollution problem, do we know it's contributing? Is there a spill? Do we have other issues that we don't know about? So it helps us get to those known knowns and the unknown unknowns. The value in conducting these beach sanitary surveys is that they help us identify pollution sources, help us characterize the beach water quality problems more effectively, help us identify appropriate mediation so that we're not wasting monies. It helps us also facilitate beach and watershed planning, develop best management practice for those that are putting together predictive models or nowcasting. Data can be collected while conducting the beach sanitary surveys, especially the routine surveys that feed information into the predictive models. They also can help develop site-specific criteria where appropriate and support other research. Within the Great Lakes, a study was conducted. They have a really great program. This is a map showing all the different beaches where they've been conducting sanitary surveys. And they were able to identify a lot of the unknowns. So giving them a great picture of what's happening in their watersheds so that they can improve beach water quality conditions for recreation. Make sure that all the public that was going to the beach was protected, or at least more protected. These slides were taken from one of the presentations that Shannon Briggs gave. It's just amazing. Before 2007, 84 to 90% of the problems were unknown. After they started conducting the surveys, they reduced it down to only 24% of their sources were unknown. Great outcomes from conducting beach sanitary surveys at a very cost-effective level. They're not going out there and conducting microbial source tracking yet. They're going out there and identifying what could be contributing sewage or fecal material to our watershed and into the area where people are in contact with waters. It's a iterative process. Sanitary surveys don't just stand alone. If you have an exceedance of fecal indicator bacteria, sanitary surveys can help you track down some of the potential sources or locate and characterize most probable culprits contributing bacteria and contaminating your area of water contact where people are at. Then we target remedial action, doing best management practices, education, whatever it takes to reduce or eliminate the pollution source. We should then see water quality improvements, people enjoying their beaches more, and that goes into more advisories, more effective monitoring, and iterative. It's adaptive management. Resources that we've been leaning upon here can be found at the EPA Beach Tech website, primarily the Marine Beach Sanitary Survey User Manual and the Great Lakes Beach Sanitary Survey User Manual. They also have an app available for iPhones and Android, the Marine Beach Sanitary Survey. But even though it's Marine Beach only, you can use that for other applications. The code is also available from EPA so that you can customize it for your own needs. Additional resources, USEPA and the water boards are available. The water contact information from the water boards can be found in the Clean Beaches and Ocean Standards webpage, as well as the California Beach Water Quality Information page. Citizen Science, that my program with the Clean Water team, we have information on monitoring for fecal indicator bacteria, as well as some other tools like detecting optic brighteners. And then, of course, the California Water Quality Monitoring Council has the water quality portal, Is It Safe to Swim in Our Waters?, as well as the California Safe to Swim work groups. If you're not participating with the California Safe to Swim work group, I invite you to. And there's a newly formed or newer formed sub-working group addressing inland waters. So what information is collected in a sanitary survey? Well, basically, it's just going out to your beach and the surrounding watershed and collecting all the information relevant towards fecal indicator transport, or bacteria transport. The information that's collected can be very unique for each watershed. Watersheds aren't the same. Infrastructure can fail in different ways, so you can modify the forms as much as you need. And even though the forms were developed for coastal beaches and Great Lakes beaches, it's okay to do a sanitary survey for estuaries, lakes, rivers, creeks, swimming holes, ponds, you name it. If people are in contact with surface waters, you can implement your monitoring program and sanitary surveys for that particular situation. Basically, you're going up into the contributing watershed and just finding out and identifying all the potential sources of fecal contamination. But you also need to get information on the environment itself. This especially helps in the formation of nowcasting and modeling. So, information on wind, temperature, wave action, tidal flushing, because that influences the movement of our fecal contamination. Fecal contamination can attach to sediments and get moved around by the wave action, migrates up and down, water column, and also along the shoreline. So collecting information on physical nature of what's happening the day you go out there doing your water quality monitoring really has a lot to do with how we can interpret the data and provide for a safer environment when people go out there and do their water contact activities. So what's the difference then between marine beach and Great Lake beach surveys? The biggest difference is that the marine sanitary surveys collect all of that environmental information regarding marine beaches like rip currents, circulation controls, tide pools, groins, lots of things like that, as well as information from total maximum daily loads, beach closures, and other very specific marine data. So earlier I said that there's two surveys that are done, one being a routine survey and then an annual survey. The routine survey is an on-site survey done when you go out and collect your water quality samples. It's very, very short. It can be filled out while you're at your site collecting your water quality samples and collecting other data. The annual sanitary survey is more rigorous. It records more comprehensive information about factors in the surrounding watershed that can affect water quality where people are in contact with the waters. So here's a shot of the first page of the Marine Beach Routine survey. It collects general conditions, your water quality data. Bather load is how many people are in the water, how many people are at your beach, and then identifying any potential pollution sources while you're at the site collecting your water quality samples. The annual survey has much more when it comes to data elements. Some of the same basic information describes the watershed's land use, weather, physical beach conditions, bather load, as well as beach maintenance or shoreline maintenance activities, information on where you're collecting your water quality samples, more water quality data, and then similarly potential pollution sources, but these are going into the watershed. It's not just where people are in contact with the waters, but where could you have any potential pollution source that's contributing to problems at your beach. And then also addressing any of the sanitary facilities within that reach. So this is just stressing that differences between annual surveys and the routine surveys. Routine surveys, really quick, little snapshot. Annual surveys are quite rigorous, but they don't take too much time. You're not going to be spending months and months and months on these. Now let's take a look at how we would approach doing a water contact sanitary survey. If you have a beach that doesn't have any monitoring data, you need to start going out there and characterizing your beach and the contributing watershed. So just where are people in contact with surface waters, identify that location, and then start conducting your surveys and collecting water quality samples. For beaches with monitoring data that shows that they're consistently meeting water quality objectives, you want to use your routine sanitary survey to take a look at potential sources that could have an impact, and especially look for the strengths of your beach water quality management efforts and efforts within the contributing watershed that are helping maintain good water quality. And then for those beaches that do not meet, and consistently don't meet water quality objectives, you want to focus your sanitary surveys on why the beach is closed, getting as much information as possible on why you're having contamination issues. What and where is the source of this contamination? Where is it coming from? And focus first on potential human sources, and then take it from there. The basic steps in conducting your water contact sanitary surveys is to begin with recruiting professional assistance. Gather a team of professionals together, and professionals can also include people that are unpaid but are of knowledge so that they can assist the program. They may have very good history of the area where people are in contact with surface waters, or have detailed information on history on the contributing watershed. Next, you would conduct an initial beach assessment and then an initial contributing watershed assessment. Two different characterizations before you begin going out into the field. Once you've done that, you can identify your survey purpose and then identify the appropriate forms for conducting your surveys. Make sure that you address health and safety for your crews that are going out in the field, and provide training for your staff and citizen scientists that are going to be going out and collecting your beach sanitary survey information. Next, you go out there and collect the data, and take that data, document all of your observations, document all your data sources, record your data appropriately, and institute a data management and sharing program. Those are the basics. We're going to go through how you would do some of those things. So recruiting professional assistance. Consult your public health officials, local agencies that are overseeing all aspects of maintaining your beaches, anyone involved in stormwater, sewer. It's a large group of people that you can pull from, but in some rural areas that may be a very short list. You can also reach out to citizen scientists and others such as lifeguards. It's a wide group of people that can be trained to perform these sanitary surveys adequately and correctly. The initial beach assessment is done if you've never gone out and took a look at what's happening. This is your initial assessment. If you haven't done any sanitary surveys before, this is where we start. During this assessment, we compile all known data on beaches. We're not going out there and collecting raw information. This is information that already exists. We compile all that and put together a list of what is known and what might not be known. This includes past problems and beaches that haven't been sampled. Where do we have people actually in contact with our surface waters? That is all part of our initial beach assessment. Our initial contributing watershed assessment takes us from that area where people are in contact with water quality and moving our survey up into the contributing watershed, looking at what could be contributing fecal contamination. Some of the resources that we need to do these surveys is readily available. We don't have to go knocking on doors all the time. Some of that is available online. So we can go to USGS and locate our watershed. Once we know where we're located, we can begin to more easily grab data that's online. Another resource is the integrated report, the 303D, 305B report. Advisories and closings, want to find out where we've had problems on our beaches. This may exist for inland waters or it may not. Just depends on how proactive your county is. The Clean Beaches and Ocean Standards can be found on the Water Board's website. It's a historical data set with available beach mile days and versus the closed days. That's when the beach has been posted that people shouldn't be in contact with the water. Information similarly can be found on Beacon. That's the Fed's Beach Advisory and Closing Online Notification website. Is it safe to swim in our waters portal? Contains a lot of information as well as links to the 303D reports. Information can be gained through Hilda Bay's Beach Report Card for coastal waters. They are beginning to monitor inland and bring in inland data into the Beach Report Card as well. This is one of the beaches that I live near, and you take a look at the information that they provide. It's all the information gathered by the Public Health Office there in Long Beach, and the monitoring locations. You can click on it and get the scores and also go through and find the data, what's happening. It's nice that it's on a map so I can find out what's going on. Potentially, as far as contributing sources, where's the storm drains. We also have stormwater or runoff that goes through the system and pools up on the sands, and so that those are areas that want the kids to avoid. Our stormwater information can be obtained through SMARTS. That's the Stormwater Multiple Applications Report and Tracking System. Another place where you can get free information, as well as CWQMCN, the California Integrated Water Quality System. Through this, you can get public reports on violations, data from self-monitoring reports, enforcement reports, and our sanitary sewer overflow reports. To get information on sanitary sewer overflows, you can use the portal. You can put in information or browse about so you can find if there's any documented sanitary sewer overflows in your contributing watershed. And then for ambient water quality data, you can take a look at the California Environmental Data Exchange Network and query that. Also, if you're beginning to do your water quality assessments and collecting fecal indicator bacteria samples and other water quality data, please upload it into CWQMCN. You can also go online to collect information on your wastewater and stormwater management options out there, what's going on. Here we have a few maps from the areas where we held our workshops showing where treatment plants are, where sewer lines are, stormwater, and this just helps you gather some information before you go out in the field. When you go out in the field, you basically try and truth this information. Try and identify potential sources of that fecal contamination. Next, we begin collecting land use information. Is it rural? Do we have farming going on? Is it semi-rural, where we have home development, where it's a mix of sewer lines and septic, horses, heavily commercialized? In some areas here in Los Angeles County, we may not have a lot of homes, but we have a lot of businesses, a lot of storage, and even though it may seem like that's not a potential source, depending on what kind of critters are living in that area, we can have some problems. So in scrap yards, we have a lot of rats, cats, and some of those scrap yards abut water quality sites of known poor water quality, as well as conveniences. So up against rivers, up against creeks, up against wetlands. Next, put together a map with the information that you've obtained so that you can go about conducting your sanitary survey most effectively. So it's taking the storm drain, sewer line information, where you have publicly owned treatment works, and then also put in there, restaurants, bars, homeless encampments, playgrounds, places where you want to protect the public, but also places where you may have sources of fecal contamination. Next, we begin to identify and survey purpose and gather about the appropriate forms. Again, the forms are plastic. You can make them as adaptable as you need for your beach, the site where people are in contact with the water, and the unique contributing watershed. So once you've done the assessment, put together your plan for prioritizing the beaches, which ones you're going to target, putting the most effort into. Identify where you're going to be putting together watershed planning to support water contact resources. Are you going to be developing predictive models? If so, you're going to have to collect some additional information. And if you're going to be putting together some remediation, how are you going to be tracking the implementation and the success or failure of that? So doing your BMP assessment. Once you have that all together, then you're able to go out in the field and do your beach sanitary survey. And again, using trained staff, trained citizen scientists. Make sure that your staff knows how to perform the sanitary survey, that their health and safety is being met when they go out into the field, and that they know what to look at. They know what kind of questions they can come back with. I saw this situation. I think we need to get some more information on that. Or, wow, I wasn't expecting sewer lines, but it looks like there's some sewer lines out there, and maybe they're broken, maybe they're not. There was an earthquake in that area. And so once you identify a potential problem, then you can start looking at it. Next month's webinar is on that, testing infrastructure, sewage as well as stormwater. Going out in the field, we're not going to just collect visual information. We're also going to be collecting water quality data. Wherever we go, we want to make sure that we document it with our GPS, making sure that we know where on our map we're seeing certain things, where we've collected water quality data, where we've collected even photographs. We want to digitally integrate everything with our GPS, our geocodes, and timestamping everything. Water quality data that is typically done when we go out there and collect our water quality sample for fecal indicator bacteria includes water temperature, odor, salinity, turbidity, dissolved oxygen. and total suspended solids. And these are all water quality parameters that citizen monitors can collect and do collect. They may not be able to perform all of the fecal indicator bacteria tests available, but they're able to support some of them, especially IDEX. While we're out in the field, we'll collect general beach conditions. Again, air temperature, rainfall, wind, sky conditions. If you're not able to collect all this information, or if you're putting together a model, a nowcast, you can get some of this information online. COCORA is a citizen monitoring group for weather. You can get information from USGS, Weather Underground, lots of different places. Depending on your site, where people are in contact with water, you may need different types of information. Next, it's assessing the bather load. And this is just how many people are out in contact with the water. It can be daunting. This is a little picture of Santa Monica. A lot of people out there. How do you count all those? Well, you can do a direct count. You can ask your lifeguards to do counts. Or you can just estimate the people that are on the beach, take photos, like this photo here, and count the people in them. Likewise, you could do aerial counts, plane, helicopter, maybe issues with drones, so you may or may not be able to use a drone to collect this type of information. Some of the beaches, they've actually done parking lot surveys. How many cars are coming in, how many people are in those cars. And then for some inland waters where it wasn't known whether people were recreating there or not, whether they were doing other types of activities in the water or not, so trail cameras or camera traps were put up so they could collect evidence of people entering the water and utilizing those surface waters. So while you're out there in the field, you also just want to record the number of people in the water as well as those that are adjacent to the water, those that are at risk and then those that are potentially at risk. So while we're in the field, we're going to identify all pollution, potential pollution sources. This could be contaminated streams, contaminated groundwater, potentially, storm drains, sewer lines, septic tanks, leach fields, dairy lagoons, feed lots, corrals, especially in the urban area, homeless camps, pet waste, wildlife that's in the area, gulls, ducks, geese, illegal discharges. Anything that you believe could be a potential pollution source, we document that using our GPS, our cameras, get that information and put it into your survey so that you can do follow-up monitoring. While we're conducting our on-site surveys, we also collect information on trash. 3 basic types, floatables, non-floatables, and natural debris. But some of the trash that's out there directly contribute towards impaired public health. Diapers, needles, medical waste, broken glass, things like that. May not directly relate to the fecal contamination. Diaper could, but the other ones can't. But we want to ensure that we have a beach that is safe to use, a water area that is safe for people to go about their water contact activities. So we'll collect the appropriate amount of information that we need. And that can vary by your program. You can collect as much or as little information on trash as need be. We also collect information on natural debris. That can be the rack. If you're at a coastal beach, that would be the algae and seaweed up around the high tide line. And also upland vegetation, looking at leaves, driftwood, arundo accumulations. Anywhere that we have natural accumulations of organic material, we can have bacteria growing. So we want to document those areas. More and more we're seeing harmful algal blooms occurring throughout California and the rest of the nation. So while people are out collecting their fecal indicator bacteria samples and conducting their routine sanitary surveys, they can also collect some information on harmful algal blooms. This could be as simple as there's a bloom or there isn't a bloom. That's valuable information, as well as are scums present. Information can be reported to the state through the California Harmful Algal Bloom Water Quality Portal, and also through the Bloom Watch app. The Bloom Watch app enables the survey person to actually take photographs. The app takes those photographs, attaches them to a series of questions that will be answered by your field person, and then timestamp it, include all the geo information, and then share it with the Bloom Watch program, and then it also gets shared with the state of California. Easy tool to use while you're going out there doing your surveys. Also document the presence of wildlife where you're conducting your surveys. Presence of wildlife and domestic animals at beaches can greatly affect water quality. It can be droppings directly into the water or on the land, and it can get washed into the waterways. So be cognizant that we have lots of different critters out there. Watersheds are very different, but sometimes it takes effort to go up into the contributing watershed to find out what's really there. So at the beach you may see gulls, ducks, but you also may have evidence of raccoons. You can look for tracks, you can look for droppings. In the watershed there may be cattle, horses, dogs, coyotes, and rodents. So document what you can. Also document dead fish, wildlife kills. Sometimes it's pretty evident when you have hundreds of fish turned up, or you may have it episodic where there was an oil spill or some kind of water quality issue happened offshore, or it could be just a lack of food and you have a die-off of seabirds and they get washed up on shore. And in some of the rural freshwater areas, livestock, the carcasses can be dumped. When I was managing wetlands for California Department of Fish and Game, that's kind of a common occurrence where we would find dead wildlife, sheep, horses, goats. Not pleasant, and definitely something that can be negative impact on your water quality. Also document hydromodification. Simple, but you have to go out there and do the survey, put it on your map. These things can influence the water quality. The water that's moving around, how it's not moving around. So documenting your marine environment, seawalls, groins, breakwaters, beach nourishment activities where municipalities are bringing in sand and dumping it on the beach. Where did that sand come from? Was it clean? What's happening within our harbors? For riverine areas, taking a look at your channels, gabions, rock riprap, geogrids. These are things that affect the water's flow, but also can trap anthropogenic debris that can contribute to fecal contamination. Some of these areas we're having huge investments within by the homeless encampments. They're getting entrenched into some of these riverine structures, and cursorily you may not observe them, but when you get out there you can see that they're actually burrowing into sites or building within some of the geogrids. Next, we take a look at our sanitary facilities where our water contact activities are happening. Are there bathhouses, restrooms, beach showers? Here in this photo, you can see a gentleman has been in the beach. He's rinsing off, and the rinse water is going right off of him and straight into the beach. Maybe that's a problem. Also, litter bins, trash cans, dumpsters not being maintained properly or don't have a lid. Gulls, dogs like to grab into that stuff on occasion and make a mess of things. Wind-blown debris or just gravity can take some of that trash and put it into contact with our waters. During a recent king tides event, I went to a waterway in Long Beach, and the water actually went over the embankment, over a concrete walkway, and into the restroom. And as the tide decreased, whatever was in contact with in that bathroom that could be mobilized, it took back into the ocean water. So maintaining and documenting what's happening with our sanitary facilities is of great importance. So please, document everything. No field data collection is complete without basic information on who collected it and when. We need all this metadata. Sometimes something little that's observed may turn into something that's really huge, like the king tides event that was observed. The city could go in and take appropriate measures so that they don't have that tidal flushing during their king tide events. We're getting close to the end here, so make sure that you record all your data appropriately, have it in backup. This is something that can't get said enough. Take your field data, turn it into digital information. Make sure that you can archive it, make it easily accessible for public health officials and others so that they can assist in making sure that we effectively manage the contributing watershed as well as the beach or the site where water contact recreation or any other water contact activity is occurring. And then you'll be able to more effectively share this information. Currently, there is no program to share the water contact sanitary surveys that are completed, but EPA does suggest that we record the survey data and make it locally accessible. So we do these surveys to support local beneficial uses. So if you can make these sanitary surveys accessible locally, I highly encourage that. Perhaps this is a discussion for one of the work groups so that we can begin to share our sanitary survey information, not just locally but statewide. Through the Beach Act grants, those entities that receive a grant and do conduct a beach sanitary survey, there's no requirements that they share that. So EPA doesn't collect any of these surveys. Great Lakes region, they are making that information available locally, in a small part of the U.S. boundaries. So that's available, but not easily accessed if you're not within the Great Lakes program. Lastly, we need to make sure that all of our data is of known quality. So we go out there and collect our water quality samples and process them. We want to make sure that this is done under a quality assurance project plan, a QAPP. Make sure that if you're using a lab that they are accredited, verify that. If you have contracts, make sure it's stated in your contracts, and then verify it every single time that you have to renew the contract or annually. Make sure that all your field staff are trained. Document their training. Each training event or activity, you want to make sure that that's documented, whether it's watching a webinar like this or they're in a classroom and it's being facilitated and they're being trained on a particular methodology. Review all of your field forms as soon as they're turned in. Once the data is put into a digital format, make sure that that's reviewed. If you are using the Beach app, review that data once it's submitted as well. Okay, validate any questionable or notable data, and then manage all of your metadata with the survey results. You want to make sure that they are tagged together. They're not in two different locations. some information digital and the others in a binder on a shelf. And then lastly, ensure that you have a health and safety plan. Can't stress that enough. People are going out in the field, we need to keep them safe. I mean, this activity is to ensure that we can keep the public safe, so we got to make sure that our field staff, they're being kept safe as well. Then, once you've done all of these activities, it's time to do a data dump, an analysis of your survey results. Also take a look at potential trends if you've been doing these sanitary surveys for more than a year. So you can put together a survey report. What did you see this year? Combine information from the annual survey and your routine surveys. You can take a look at allocating resources so that you can assess your beaches more effectively. This would include pollution source tracking, taking a look at personal care products as an indicator of anthropogenic impacts, optic brighteners the same way. Later in the webinar series, we'll have a webinar presentation on microbial source tracking molecularly. And then also taking a look at infrastructure testing, visual, electronic pipe inspection, smoke tests, dye tests, even canines can go out there and detect sewage contamination. Next month's webinar will be on this topic. Part of your analysis should also include remediation steps, either identifying potential steps in BMPs, or if those have been implemented, how well are they working? The analysis can also include modeling, if your modeling is effective, if you need to do changes, if you need to collect different type of information to make the models more effective. Again, we'll have a webinar at the end of the series on modeling and nowcasting. And lastly, sharing this information. We want to make sure that the public has the information to make informed decisions on where they can go and safely have water contact activities, but also with others within our watershed management team. You know, it's not just a single program generally, it's multiple players that make for a healthy watershed and a safe water body for the public to interact with the waters. So that wraps it up for me. I'd be glad to take some questions.